Every country on Earth is swimming in debt. The United States' current debt has surpassed $38 trillion, the highest in its history. The European Union owes around $14 trillion, and Japan about $9 trillion. Even oil-rich Saudi Arabia, practically printing money, owes someone. So how is it that everyone is paying off debt? If everyone owes money, then to whom do we all owe it? Here's where things get interesting. Debt isn't just a burden. It's the very structure modern civilization is built on. Behind everything, wars, economic crises, global growth, lies this invisible web of debt. And when we rewind the story far enough, we realize something strange. The world doesn't owe anyone. It owes itself. But of course, that doesn't mean everyone is winning. The idea of national debt didn't begin on Wall Street. It began after a war in 1694. England had gone to war with France and was running out of gold. The king turned to merchants and said, "Lend me money and I'll pay you interest in return." These loans were secured by future taxes, and this arrangement led to the creation of the Bank of England. It changed everything. The state could now spend money it didn't yet have. In return, merchants received the government's promise, a bond. These promises could be bought, sold, transferred, and traded like money. Modern finance was born. Later, France, the Netherlands, and the United States followed the same path, and debt was no longer seen as weakness. It became a symbol of trust. If you could borrow, you were considered powerful. In the past, empires conquered lands for gold. Now they issue bonds for interest. The battlefield has moved from land to ledgers. 3 centuries later, debt has become the world's most traded product. The United States owes $38 trillion, Japan $9 trillion, and every 100 days, another $1 trillion is added to global debt. Every nation is indebted, every financial institution lends, and we, through our taxes, savings, and pensions, are both debtors and creditors. But who stands on the other side of this balance? America's debt problem isn't just its own, it's the world's. Half of that $38 trillion is held by American investors, banks, funds, insurance companies, and even the Federal Reserve. The remaining third is held by foreign investors. Japan leads with about $1 trillion, followed by China with $800 billion. But China's share makes up only 2% of the total debt. So, in truth, America's biggest creditor is America itself. The Treasury issues bonds, banks and funds buy them. The Fed occasionally repurchases them and creates new dollars. Citizens pay taxes, those taxes turn into interest payments, and that interest flows back into pension funds. In short, the debt circulates within America itself. But this isn't unique to the U.S. Japan lends to America, America lends to Europe, Europe lends to developing nations, and those nations reinvest their money in Western bonds. So everyone holds a piece of someone else's promise. The world runs on a "you owe me, I owe him" chain of obligations. And the only thing keeping it alive is simple: no one leaves the table. Behind government stand financial giants managing trillions of dollars. They decide who borrows cheaply and who collapses. When confidence fades, currencies crash and governments fall. Democracy may decide who leads, but markets decide who survives. And at the heart of it all are central banks. They don't just create money. They create debt. When central banks buy bonds, they create new money in exchange. One entity's debt becomes another's asset. In other words, every dollar represents someone's debt. There's no such thing as debt-free money. Every banknote carries an invisible signature that reads, "This is a debt." The entire system runs on confidence. As long as investors believe governments will pay the interest, the system works. But what happens when that belief disappears? We've seen it in Greece, Argentina, Sri Lanka. When debts couldn't be paid, countries defaulted, people lost jobs, austerity hit hard. And yet the system rebooted itself every time. New loans were issued, old debts rewritten. The same cycle, under new names, continued. Because in the modern world, debt isn't meant to be paid off. It's meant to be rolled over. Governments never plan to pay off their debts. Never. They issue new bonds to pay old ones and keep the interest flowing. This process is called refinancing. Interest is the system's lifeblood. The global economy depends on that flow, like a shark that must keep swimming to stay alive. The U.S. will never pay back its $38 trillion. Japan has been rolling over debt equal to 250% of its GDP for decades. Investors don't expect repayment. They expect the system to keep running, because to them, government debt is the safest thing in existence. U.S. treasuries are the world's collateral. For banks, they're security. For funds, profit. For central banks, they're money itself. That's why if governments ever paid off their debts, the system would collapse. Paying it back would shrink the money supply, trigger deflation, and freeze economies. So the irony is this: not paying the debt is what keeps the system alive. When politicians say, "We'll balance the budget," it's often just a performance. The real goal isn't to eliminate debt, it's to keep it sustainable. Because everything depends on confidence. Once that trust fades, numbers lose meaning, rates spike, and the machine stops. Debt, in truth, is a contract with no end date. A promise meant to be kept forever. And here lies the greatest secret of finance. The plan was never to repay the debt. The plan was to make the world believe it could be repaid.